Trauma absolutely shapes who you become, especially the trauma resulting from other people hurting you. Maybe a parent, a family member, a partner, a neighbor. But I've noticed something happening lately with more and more people becoming aware that their traumas have played a huge role in how their life has played out. It could be with their physical health, their relationship dynamics, their reactions in different situations that happen to them, how they think, how they feel, and just, how they show up in the world in general. But here's the part that I see most people missing about this awareness that is really preventing so many people from being able to move forward and create the change that they really want in their life. Recovering from their chronic health issues, improving their relationships. Understanding that your trauma shaped you and played a role in your physical health and your current reality is not an excuse to stay there and remain a victim of it. So there's a really important line between being shaped by something that happened to you, right? And becoming it. And letting it define who you are and using it as an excuse to not create the vibrant and spectacular and fucking amazing life that you were put here to live. And most people don't realize that that's the thing that's keeping them stuck. Joe Dispenza says, the memory without the emotional charge is wisdom. And using that wisdom to move forward in your life without the emotional attachment to what happened in the past, that's where your real power and the next level of what your life is supposed to be is waiting for you. That's the work. That's where your power is. That's where your freedom is. And here's the truth. This shouldn't take years of therapy to unpack. It can literally be something that you choose to let go of right now. Because retelling the story over and over and over again with the emotional charge still there, that activates the nervous system and keeps you stuck right where you are. So in this episode, we're going to talk about that line where awareness becomes either an excuse to keep getting more of what's not working for you, or it can be the fuse at the end of the dynamite stick that sets you fucking free. The difference between being aware of how your past has impacted you and using that awareness to actually move forward to the next level of amazing greatness in your life. So we're going to talk about trauma. Now, there are many different types of trauma that a person can experience throughout their lives, right? There's trauma from the way you were treated by another person. There's accident trauma, injuries, loss, chronic illness. But today we're specifically going to be talking about the kind that comes from being hurt by other people and how continuing to live in that pain keeps you stuck instead of allowing that wisdom that comes from it to set you free. And maybe, just maybe, even become part of your superpower. Think about that. So we're going to talk about how forgiveness is the magic portal to reclaiming your power. So this is a place where I see most people really stay stuck, like really digging their heels in. I've even seen other practitioners in my space who talk a lot about trauma and being trauma informed as part of their process. But something I notice in their content that they put out into the world is a lot of finger pointing and blame and anger and resentment that's still showing up in what they're putting out to the world. And that's where I see the awareness that the trauma was at the root of all of the shit, right? But still using it as an excuse to stay stuck instead of releasing it through forgiveness. So you might be thinking right now, yeah, Tammy, I hear you, but I am never forgiving them. They do not deserve to be forgiven. And I get it. Because you think that forgiving them is going to be betraying yourself, that somehow they're not going to be held accountable if you forgive them. And I get it. But here's the thing. Holding on to the anger and resentment isn't hurting them. It's like drinking poison and expecting them to die. It's only hurting you. There's a quote that I love that says, "He who angers you conquers you." And it really is true. And when you really let that idea sink in, you start to see how much power gets handed over every time you stay emotionally tied to what someone else did to you. Because staying in that hurt doesn't protect you at all. Lots of people get stuck here because they think that forgiving someone means excusing their behavior and making them unaccountable for it. It doesn't undo what happened. You can't rewind time and change the past. Staying angry isn't going to change anything. It just keeps you in an emotional loop that feels crappy. It keeps your life smaller than it's meant to be. And what most people don't realize is that when you keep going back to the story with the same emotional charge, you are not processing it. You are reinforcing it. You are handing over your emotional energy to the person who hurt you. You are keeping your nervous system in that same loop, the same thoughts, the same feelings, the same reactions, day after day after day. And this is actually something that I see people doing all day long without even realizing it. Like, it's constant. And that's exactly why I created my Complaining Detox Challenge, because most people don't even realize how often they're looping the same thoughts, the same reactions, the same emotional charge, the same emotional patterns. And it's keeping their nervous system stuck in that exact cycle. So the Complaining Detox Challenge is a 2-week reset where you start catching this in real time. So you can actually start learning to interrupt that pattern, because once you see that it's there, you cannot unsee it. And so the awareness is what's really key. And that's the point when everything starts to change. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yep, that's me, that's exactly what I do, this is a really, really powerful place for you to start. And I'm going to link that down below in the description of this video. So there's a really big difference between something being part of your story and becoming your identity. What happened to you, like I mentioned a minute ago, it can't be changed. That's just fact. But it doesn't have to define who you are moving forward. You can take the experience, you can learn from it, you can grow from it, you can let it shape you. Let it become your superpower. Or you can let it keep crushing you. Continuing to carry the emotional burden of it does not hurt the other person, it hurts you. So at some point, you have to ask yourself, am I holding on to this because it's actually helping me? Or because I don't know who I'd be without it? Because letting go is not about them. It's about you getting your energy back, your peace back, and most importantly, your power back. And deciding that what happened to you is not going to take any more from you than it already has. I was recently listening to this absolutely incredible story about this woman by the name of Katrina Brownlee. When she was 20 years old, she was pregnant with her third child. She had 2 little kids, and she was shot 10 times by her abusive partner. 10 times. And that happened after she had called the police to their home numerous times because of this abuse. And she had been dismissed each and every time because he was a correctional officer. So by some miracle, she survived being shot 10 times. She lost the baby she was carrying. She had to relearn how to walk again. She was homeless, completely alone, no safety net, no family to fall back on, penniless, No one was coming to save her. Like, she was as rock bottom gets. And most people in this situation, understandably, would live the rest of their life from that place, angry, hardened, closed off, operating from that trauma forever. And here's the thing, you might expect that this woman would have done that. Anyone would, most people would. Because if anyone deserved to hold on to anger and resentment and hatred and fear, it would be her. But that is not what she did. She rebuilt her life beyond what the little girl who grew up in total poverty in the projects would have ever dreamed possible. She went on, this is crazy, she went on to become an NYPD officer. She went into the very system that had failed her numerous times. And why did she do this? Because she wanted to be the good cop. She wanted to be the cop who helped women who were in similar situations that she had been in. She wanted them to have someone who cared about them and believed in them. 20 years she served as an NYPD officer. And during this 20 years, she worked undercover to help other women who were trapped in abusive relationships, in prostitutions, in situations that looked a lot like the one that she, had come from. So think about that. She didn't just survive what happened to her. She didn't forget what happened to her. She used it as her superpower. She turned it into something that allowed her to go back and pull other people out of the same darkness she had been in. Pretty freaking remarkable. And when she was asked how she did it, how she didn't stay stuck in the trauma, in the anger, in the pain, her answer was really simple. She said, I chose to forgive him. And that's the part most people struggle with. Because people hear that and they immediately think, how could you forgive someone who did that to you? But she didn't forgive him because he deserved it. Let's make that clear. She didn't forgive him because what he did was okay. She didn't forgive him to make him feel better. She forgave him because it was the only way she could move forward. The only way she could release the emotional stranglehold that experience had had on her. Because she understood something that most people don't. Holding on to that anger would not have punished him. It would have poisoned her. It would have kept her in it. It would have kept her nervous system stuck, reliving the terror. It would have kept her life orbiting around the worst thing that had ever happened to her. And she decided that was not going to be the story she lived in for the rest of her life. That was not what she was going to model for her children. So instead, she let it be something that shaped her, but not something that defined her. And because of that, she got her freaking life back. And then some. She got her power back. She gained a sense of purpose. That's what forgiveness actually is. It's not about them. It's about deciding that what happened to you does not get to take anything else from you. This happened. It matters. It shaped me. But it doesn't get to take the steering wheel of my life. That's peace. And here's the thing that most people don't want to hear. Staying hurt does not protect you. It keeps your life small. This is what I call the validation trap. People get stuck waiting for an apology, waiting to be understood, waiting for validation. Brene Brown, I love her, she says, waiting for someone else to validate your pain is like handing them the keys to your emotional life. And that is a dangerous place to live, because now your healing depends on someone else who may never be capable of giving you that. Carolyn Mace, she's another one I love. If you're not familiar with her, she's a medical intuitive. She's an author, and she's done decades of work around trauma and energy and how people stay stuck in patterns and create illness in their bodies after traumatic events that they're holding on to. So she tells this story about a woman in her late 40s who came to her for help. She'd been locking herself up in her home for over 20 years, just totally hiding from the world, completely stagnant in her life. She developed autoimmune conditions. She said she couldn't be happy. She couldn't leave the house. And all of this was because she'd been raped as a teenager. And she had been reliving the incident in her mind all day, every day, for those 20 plus years. And Carolyn, she has a very blunt approach. You have to be ready for her. She interrupted her while she was retelling the story. And she said something along the lines of, "So you mean to tell me that you've been basically living your life in a cage for over 20 years? Not really living your life. You've made yourself sick because of an incident that lasted about 5 minutes over 20 years ago? Do you realize that you've allowed that man to take up real estate in your life and make you his victim every single day since then? And meanwhile, he's gone on living his life. Stop retelling the story." And as blunt as that sounds, it's the truth. Because every time you replay the story of your trauma, your nervous system relives it again and again and again. Because your nervous system does not know the difference. It cannot tell the difference between something actually happening and something that you're just replaying in your mind. So if you're thinking about it 50 times a day, you're reliving it 50 times a day. No wonder your nervous system isn't calming down, right? And then people wonder why they're stuck, why symptoms don't improve, why they can't move forward. It's not just what you're doing, it's what you're thinking. And here's a personal story about forgiveness from my own life. My dad was a neglectful and abusive alcoholic. And after an incident with him in my late 20s, I wrote a letter to hold him accountable for all the ways that he had hurt me throughout my life. I really wrote that letter as a means to get it out of my own system, like to get the energy out. But ultimately, I decided that I wanted to send it, even though I knew that he probably wasn't going to respond and he definitely wasn't going to take accountability. But that's not what was important to me. I needed to let it out. So I didn't expect, or quite frankly, I didn't even want a response from him. I just wanted to release the resentment that I had been building up in my body for years, my entire life. It had been growing inside me like a cancer. But something happened that really surprised me. He responded. Not only did he respond, but he owned it. All of it. He apologized. And when I saw him later, it was shortly before he died, I saw him a lot differently than I had before. I saw not a man who was, supposed to be my guide and my caretaker, my protector as a little girl. Instead, I saw him as a wounded child who had never healed. And I realized at that time that his inability to love me had nothing to do with me at all. And that's when the emotional charge just completely disappeared. And that's what forgiveness does. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's not excusing the behavior. It's not saying it was okay. It's not letting them back into your life if they haven't earned a spot there. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the emotional weight of it. And let me be clear that you can forgive someone and still have zero relationship with them. Those are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for yourself, for your dignity, for your power, is to walk away silently without needing them to see things from your perspective, without needing them to own what they did, without expecting an apology you might never receive. Because your peace does not require any of that. It just requires releasing it, letting it go. There are numerous people in my life that I hold no hostility toward, but they still have not earned a seat at the table of my life. So if you take anything away from this episode, let it be this. You can honor what happened without staying tied to it. You can acknowledge the pain without building your identity around it. You can forgive without reconnecting. And you can move forward, even if they never say that they're sorry. And I encourage you to ask yourself, am I holding on to this, or is it holding on to me? So I hope you found something valuable in this episode, maybe a perspective shift on how you've been looking at the past. And if you did, do me a big favor and pass it along to someone you know who would really love it too and get something out of it. I've also got several resources linked down below in the description. So if you're ready to go deeper into this work, if you want a really simple place to start, I talked about this earlier, my 2-week complaining detox challenge is a really powerful place to start. It helps you start catching the thought patterns that keep your nervous system stuck in that survival loop so that you can actually begin shifting things in real time. It's truly real-time practice in everything I talk about on this podcast. I also have my Rewired for Healing EFT tapping program linked down there because what's really keeping most people stuck isn't just what they're doing, It's that subconscious gunk that's running in the background all day long. So tapping is one of the fastest ways to shift that. It's quick, it's simple, and it works. Just a few minutes a day of tapping can start shifting how you think, how you feel, and how your body responds to all the things that you're doing. There's also a link to my free masterclass where I walk you through how a true root cause approach actually works and why your nervous system has to be part of that, not just all the other things that you've been trying. And if you're at that point where you're just ready for some hand holding, some deeper one-on-one support, there's also a link to apply for a freedom call, and we can talk about what working together could look like. So all of that is down below for you in the description. And if you got something out of this episode, if something clicked for you, if you had a perspective shift, if something just made you pause and think a little bit differently, I'd love to hear about that. If you're on YouTube, drop a comment down below. I try to read all of them and comment on just as many as I can. And I genuinely do love hearing what your takeaways are. But more than anything, thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it so much. I love you, I mean it, and I'll see you in the next episode.